Welcome to Grifter or Gifted. You know the drill. We take a deep dive into the lives of some of today's most, well, let's just say interesting figures. Today we're going to be trying to figure out Vanessa Beeley.
Ooh, yeah, she's a fascinating one. British activist and blogger, but her views have definitely caused a stir.
Yeah, a stir's putting it mildly. So, is she a genuine voice for the unheard? Or is there maybe something a bit more going on?
Well, that's what we're here to uncover, right? It's a real head scratcher because she presents herself with such conviction, it's hard not to get pulled in.
Right. It's like, is she truly a believer or a master manipulator? Speaking of digging, we've done quite a bit of our own research too. Articles, websites, even some corporate
Oh,
records.
wow, the deep dive team's been busy.
Always. So let's start with Vanessa Beeley's background. Born June 1964, initially worked as a consultant in the Middle East.
That's interesting already. That's where things start to, well, take a turn, I guess you could say. Around 2014, she shifts gears, becomes an activist, big focus on the Palestinian cause.
Right, and she was actually living in Israel during the 2014 bombardments.
Exactly, right in the thick of it.
And then 2015 hits, and her focus shifts again. This time, it's all about the Syrian civil war. Even met with President Bashar al-Assad in 2016.
Whoa, okay, so now we're talking about some serious access and potential influence here. And this seems to happen right around the time she starts popping up more and more on Russian state media, RT, Sputnik, those kinds of places.
Yeah, outlets known for pushing a very specific narrative about the Syrian conflict. It's amazing how certain events or maybe people can totally change someone's trajectory.
It's true, like a fork in the road of life. And it's this shift toward the Syrian civil war that really throws her into the spotlight.
And right into the heart of controversy.
Big time, especially when you look at her views on the White Helmets.
Ah, yes, the White Helmets, a volunteer organization working in those opposition-controlled parts of Syria, widely known for their rescue efforts, documenting the impact of the war. Even nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize, actually.
Right, exactly. But Beeley, she paints a completely different picture.
Almost like an upside-down world.
Yeah, kind of. Like, she flips the script. Terrorist organizations, staging rescues, even organ harvesting.
Whoa, those are some seriously heavy accusations.
Right, and you have to consider the potential consequences of these claims.
Definitely, especially for an organization like the White Helmets,
Mhm.
putting their lives on the line. But Beeley doesn't stop at just making accusations. She actually encourages her readers to report journalists, even big outlets like the BBC.
Seriously. Wow.
Yep, for reporting on the White Helmets. She argues they are violating the UK Terrorism Act.
Hmm. That's something else. This isn't just about expressing a different opinion. It's about trying to silence others.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder about her tactics. So how do Beeley's claims hold up under scrutiny?
Well, not so great, to be honest. Middle East experts, fact-checking organizations, they've pretty consistently debunked her stuff.
Like across the board.
Pretty much, yeah. They call them false and link them back to, well, you guessed it, pro-Assad and Russian government narratives.
So it's not just a one-off criticism. It seems like a pattern.
Exactly, and it raises the question, is she a true believer? Or is there a bigger game being played? Like, for example, there's data showing Beeley was one of the top influencers spreading White Helmets content in 2018.
Which means her words are reaching a lot of people.
A lot of people, and potentially swaying opinions.
It's kind of scary to think about the impact of that, especially when it's about an organization like the White Helmets.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's not just limited to Syria either. Beeley's also promoted some, let's say, unconventional theories about COVID-19.
Oh, right, like the ones about Bill Gates and Imperial College London.
Exactly, tying them into some kind of, I don't know, grand scheme.
It's a classic conspiracy theory move, connecting dots that maybe shouldn't be connected.
And these theories, they can have real-world consequences. In 2019, two universities in Canada actually canceled her talks. They were worried about potential disruptions and unrest because of her views.
Wow, so her views are sparking concern, even within academic circles.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the platforms that give her a voice. She's been an associate editor of 21st Century Wire, a website known for its, well, let's just say, alternative viewpoints.
Ah, yes, 21st Century Wire, not exactly known for their mainstream reporting.
And then there's Mint Press News,
Mint Press, yeah, another website with a distinct lean, let's say.
definitely pro-Assad. They even gave her the Serena Shim Award for uncompromised integrity in journalism.
Oh, wow, the Serena Shim Award. That's named after a journalist who died in some pretty suspicious circumstances while covering the Syrian conflict.
Yeah, and Beeley often talks about Shim as an inspiration, a fellow truth seeker.
But here's the thing. That same award has gone to several other people who share Beeley's views on Syria. And they've all promoted similar, alternative theories.
So it makes you wonder about the award itself.
It really does. Is it about journalistic integrity or is it about pushing a specific narrative?
Right. Is it about truth or is it about agenda?
Exactly.
It's starting to feel like Beeley is part of a larger network, reinforcing each other's views.
Yeah, a network of like-minded individuals and platforms.
And that raises a whole other set of questions. We even uncovered a curious detail about Beeley's past. Back in 2004, for a short time, she was a director for the Lusitano Breed Society of Great Britain. Her illicit occupation, sales and marketing.
So that's interesting. It suggests a background in persuasion, communication.
Skills that could definitely be useful in activism and maybe in spreading certain types of information too.
Yeah, makes you think. Makes you think about how those skills might be at play in her current work.
Definitely food for thought. But that's a discussion for another time. In part 2 of our deep dive, we're going to take a closer look at some of Beeley's most controversial claims, especially those surrounding the White Helmets and the Syrian Civil War. It's going to get intense.
Can't wait. Welcome back. You know where you are, right? Grifter or gifted, still trying to figure out Vanessa Beeley.
Yeah, we're picking up where we left off. Remember how we were talking about her stance on the White Helmets?
Oh yeah, that's a big one. Really the center of a lot of the controversy surrounding her.
Like she chose a super sensitive issue, almost like it was on purpose.
Well, yeah, you could argue that. Think about it. The White Helmets, they're operating in these really dangerous parts of Syria, risking their lives to help people after bombings. Really heroic stuff. They even got nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. That's how highly regarded they are.
Right, they're seen as these selfless heroes.
Exactly. But Beeley, she flips the script. Suddenly, they're a terrorist organization, staging rescues, even harvesting organs.
Those accusations are so extreme, it's hard to even wrap your head around them.
Right, and you have to think about the potential impact of those claims, too. It's not just words. It could have real consequences for the White Helmets.
Especially since they're already working in such a dangerous environment.
Exactly. It's adding fuel to the fire.
And it's not just the accusations themselves, it's the way she goes about it. Encouraging her followers to report journalists who cover the White Helmets.
Wow, so it's like an active campaign to silence any opposing views.
That's how it seems.
Pretty wild.
So if her claims are so out there, how do they hold up under scrutiny?
Not well. I mean, Middle East experts, fact-checking organizations, they've all pretty much debunked her claims. They point out the lack of evidence, the inconsistencies, the clear bias in her reporting.
So it's not just one or two people saying she's wrong, it's a whole chorus of experts.
Exactly. And they've gone through her work with a fine-tooth comb, analyzed her arguments, exposed the flaws in her logic.
So if the experts are saying she's wrong, why do some people still believe her?
That's the big question, isn't it? What makes her message so appealing?
Yeah, what's the draw?
Well, part of it is the way she taps into existing distrust, A lot of people are already skeptical of governments, mainstream media. They feel like they're not getting the full story, that something's being hidden from them.
So she positions herself as this truth teller, someone who's brave enough to speak out against the powers that be.
Exactly. She's the David going up against the Goliath.
And that kind of narrative, that can be really powerful, especially for people who feel disillusioned or marginalized.
It's like she gives them a simple explanation for a complex world.
And in a world that feels increasingly chaotic and unpredictable, that simplicity can be comforting.
Definitely. It's like she offers a sense of order, a way to make sense of things.
Even if that sense of order is based on, misinformation.
Right. Even if the foundation is shaky.
It's scary to think about how many people are being exposed to these narratives.
Especially when you consider the potential consequences. Like we were talking about before, she was one of the most influential figures spreading content about the White Helmets online. That's a lot of reach, a lot of potential to sway opinions.
And when it comes to a conflict as complex as the Syrian civil war, that influence can be really dangerous.
Absolutely. It's adding to the confusion, the polarization.
It's a reminder that we can't just passively consume information, especially online.
We have to be critical thinkers, question our sources, look for evidence.
They'd be willing to change our minds when presented with new information.
Exactly. It's about being open to different perspectives, even if they challenge our existing beliefs.
So, back to Vanessa Beeley. Is she a true believer in the things she says? Or is there a more calculated motive at play?
It's hard to say for sure, but what we do know is that her words have a real impact. And whether she intends to or not, she's contributing to the spread of misinformation.
which can have serious consequences, both for individuals and for society as a whole.
Absolutely.
And it's not just about the Syrian civil war either. Remember, she's also promoted some pretty wild theories about COVID-19, like Bill Gates orchestrating a global pandemic.
Yeah, those theories got a lot of traction online, and they really highlight the dangers of misinformation, especially during a public health crisis.
We're going to dig into those claims in more detail in the next part of our deep dive.
We'll also explore the forces that drive the creation and spread of disinformation. It's
Yeah.
a complex issue, but it's one we need to understand if we want to combat it.
All right, we're back for the final part of our Vanessa Beeley deep dive.
Mm.
We've gone through her background, her claims about Syria and the white helmets, even touched on some of those COVID-19 theories. Now we need to talk about the bigger picture. Like, how do these narratives even take root and spread?
Right. It's not like they just appear out of nowhere. Misinformation thrives when there's already this underlying distrust in, authority, institutions, the media, when people feel like they're not getting the whole truth from those traditional sources.
They start looking for answers elsewhere.
Exactly. And that's when they can become more vulnerable to, let's say, alternative explanations.
So who exactly is gravitating toward Beeley's message? Who's finding her compelling?
Well, it's actually a pretty diverse group. You've got far-right groups in Europe, conspiracy theorists of all stripes, pro-Palestinian activists, even some American conservatives.
Oh, that's quite a mix.
It is, but there are some common threads. Skepticism of Western intervention, a belief in these powerful forces pulling the strings, and a willingness to embrace narratives that challenge the mainstream.
So Beeley's message, especially about Syria, it kind of provides this simple, easy to understand narrative for a very complex situation.
Right, it's black and white, good guys versus bad guys. The white helmets are the villains, Assad's the victim, and Western governments are the puppet masters.
And for people who already distrust authority, that kind of narrative can be very appealing.
Totally, it confirms their suspicions, validates their worldview.
It's like a puzzle piece that fits perfectly, even if it's from the wrong puzzle.
Exactly.
Remember how we talked about Mint Press News, the platform that gave Beeley that award? They also publish a lot of other content that echoes her views.
Oh yeah, it's like an echo chamber. The same claims, the same perspective, just constantly reinforcing each other.
Makes it tough to break free from that cycle.
Very tough. Dissenting voices are often drowned out or labeled as part of the conspiracy.
So where does this leave us with Vanessa Beeley? Is she a grifter? Is she gifted? Or is it something else entirely?
Honestly, it's hard to say for sure. She's clearly a talented communicator, knows how to craft a narrative, connect with an audience, but whether she genuinely believes what she's saying or if there's a more calculated motive behind it, that's a tough one to answer.
But regardless of her intentions, her work has a real impact. It's contributing to the spread of misinformation, sowing distrust in legitimate organizations.
And potentially shaping public opinion on some very important issues.
Which brings us to a really important point. We all have a responsibility to be critical thinkers.
Especially in this day and age with social media and all these echo chambers.
We can't just passively absorb information. We have to question our sources, consider their biases.
Look for evidence, be willing to change our minds.
It's about being engaged, curious, skeptical, but not cynical.
Exactly. It's about realizing that the truth is often complex and messy. It takes effort to sort through it all.
So this deep dive into Vanessa Beeley's world, it's been a wild ride.
It has. It's really exposed the challenges of navigating the information landscape.
And highlighted just how important critical thinking is. It's a reminder that we all play a role in combating misinformation, in ensuring that truth and accuracy win out in the end.
It's a responsibility we all share.
We got to be informed, discerning, engaged citizens, especially in this increasingly complex world.
We can't just sit back and be passive consumers of information anymore.
We got to dig deeper, ask questions, think for ourselves.
And hopefully, by doing that, we can create a more informed, more equitable society for everyone.